We'd got to this point by the end of last video. Basically, when we type in just the URL that we've got, it takes this route, runs this function, and ran this very simple index.html, which basically did nothing. It just spat out a bit of HTML. The typical thing that we want to do is to receive data from the web page and then pass data back to it. We're going to do that using a form. I'm going to do the kind of simplest example that I can do here. So I've modified the index.html, so it is a little form now. It's form/form, method equals post. It's just the way that the data is passed to the server. And I've got two fields here. One is called input test, and the other one's just the submit button. So not a very exciting form. We'll see it in a minute. Back in here, firstly, the app.root, we need to tell it that potentially that there will be a form or form data coming when we go to this path. So when we submit the form, it will reload this page with the data. So to do this, we say the methods that could be used are get and post, the two different ways of passing data in a form. I wonder if you could just get away with just using post. You probably could, you know. Anyway. And that then means that we can get the data from that form. So we might say something like, I'm just going to I'd normally just say form equals, but I'm going to say the form just to show that it's not a specific keyword. So the form equals request.form, and that's basically saying give me all the data from the form that was being submitted. Now, request is actually yet another little thing that we need to import from Flask. So add that to the import up here. And now what we want to do is we want to have a look at that data. So this has actually got all that form data into this method right now. So we can do whatever we want with all the fields that were in that form. There was only one form, one field, sorry, which was called the input, I seem to remember. So what I can say is it's called, what was it called? Test input? Input test. Okay, so I can say my data, I'm making up my variable names here, do something better than my names please, equals, and then I can say the form, so this is a whole object which contains all the fields of the form, and I need to specify which field I am looking for, which was input test, and that will return, that gets the data that has been submitted in that form. Now I do have to be a little bit careful here, in that if I try to look at the form when there wasn't actually a form submitted, then I'm going to have a problem. Basically, it will just give me an error message saying that this doesn't exist yet. So what I need to do is I need to say, put an if statement, which I think is something like if request.form, I just need to look this up, give me a second. I looked it up, it's request.method. So we're just basically asking, was something posted as part of a form? That's all this is asking here. So if that is the case, then we're going to get my data from the form, that field from the form. Now I'm actually going to pass this back to the form to then render it. So when this every time I click the form, submit on the form, it'll resubmit and re-render the form. So I'm going to send this back to the form and make it spit it out at me. Now the danger, of course, is that my data is, if I try and pass this right now, it only exists if the form's been submitted once. So the very first time through, my data won't exist. That's a bad thing. So I'm just going to, just to get around that right now, I'm just going to make my data blank until otherwise, until we actually go and get the data from the form. So we're nearly there. So we've got my data from the form, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass that back to the index.html page render template. So I'm going to say, my data equals my data. It's just kind of useful in this case to have the same thing. So my data is how it's going to be referred to in the index.html, and this is my data, which is this variable here. I think that's all right. I'm going to save it anyway, and then I'm going to go back to my form, and I'm going to go and grab that data. So I'm going to put in here just like a paragraph or something that will say paragraph you entered, and then we say this is the double braces is the way that we say we're now heading into doing some server-side scripting. So we'll put logic into these kind of things in time. There'll be for loops. Typically what you do is you loop through a list of data that's passed through. But in this case, we're just going to say, give me that variable value. And this is the shorthand way of saying that. You entered, and then the double braces, my data, is that variable in a paragraph. There's a chance that'll work. Let's try it, shall we? Hit play. We didn't enter anything yet. So if I put in hello and submit, you entered hello. And if I put in goodbye and submit, you entered goodbye. So just to recap then, this is coping with form input, and it is also passing data back to the page as part of the render template. And I think that's going to be the building blocks of how we make our GUI actually work.